Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, and today for you guys we're going to be talking about how you personally can keep Yu-Gi-Oh from getting stale. What do I mean by that? Well, if you've ever played competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, you will know, or if you've played Yu-Gi-Oh for a long time even for that matter, you will know that Yu-Gi-Oh can get stale very quickly, especially when you're playing competitive. When you have to play against the same decks over and over and over again. Especially in formats when there's the top, three main decks in the format and that's what's topping the most. Or just when it gets really bad when it's just a two-deck format, especially competitively. But even in the casual sense, if you keep playing Yu-Gi-Oh for a long period of time, it does get kind of boring and playing the same deck over and over again competitively and playing against the same deck over and over again just gets becomes old hat, and it just becomes boring and dry and stale. So how are some ways that you can keep Yu-Gi-Oh fresh and take a new look and try new things out? Well, I've played competitively and I've been in that boat many a times before. I used to play competitively a long time ago, a lot. And for years, I always ran into that problem. Yu-Gi-Oh just got boring. Playing against competitively for long periods of time just got boring and stale, especially in two-deck formats or one-deck formats for Teledag, for example. So what are some ways that I found? There were some ways that I actually found to keep Yu-Gi-Oh fresh and new. And I always believe that these are always what I turn to when I feel Yu-Gi-Oh is getting stale, especially in the fall time, I guess you could say, the fall and winter times, especially here in the United States when it becomes winter and fall. I always notice that the Yu-Gi-Oh community kind of gets a little bit antsy and upset about Yu-Gi-Oh because it gets kind of stale. I don't know if it's the weather that does something to us, but around my area everybody gets kind of like bored of Yu-Gi-Oh and thinks it's a boring meta. And we're always doing the fall and winter times of the year. But back on topic, what are some ways you can do to keep Yu-Gi-Oh fresh and new? First thing is, I would say, is try dueling in tag teams. And I'm not talking about, you can do it a whole bunch of different ways. You can, when you're dueling tag team, you can just use your normal deck that you would play with. Grab a buddy, get two more friends of yours, and just duel in tag team with your regular standard deck. Don't make no modifications or anything like that, and try to find a way to communicate with each other. And it just becomes really fun when you have two decks that have two completely ideologies of playing, but you find a way to work and communicate together and beat your opponents. That's something really fun. Especially if you can find two archetypes that really gel together, like Gravekeepers and Dark Worlds. That's a really good combination, I should mention, because you can get big beat 6 all in the field with Dark Worlds, and you can shut your opponents down with Gravekeepers. Pretty good combination, actually. So another thing you can do when you're playing tag duels is you can freaking get some things where you actually can make decks that can be used for tag duels. So you and your friend build a tag duel-esque deck. So you build decks that are really you wouldn't see otherwise unless you were playing tag duels, and they become much more valuable and much more better when you play tag duels. This is another way you can do it when you're playing tag duels. The second thing I find that's really awesome when the meta gets really stale, especially if you don't have a lot of friends, is building lower competitive decks. What do I mean by that? Well, why is that a good thing? I've always been an advocate of playing lower tier decks for the fact that it can actually make you a better player. I've always been an advocate, especially maybe not the super low tier decks, but decks that are tier 2, tier 3, especially tier 2 decks. They can make you a better player because you don't have all the power of the tier 1 decks, and you have to use, I guess you could say, you have to use your resources a little bit more wisely. It teaches you a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh basics and card economics, life points, what makes a card a good card. People pretty much won't know what Book of Moon is, really. They'll think, oh, it's just Book of Moon, everybody plays it. But you'll really understand the power of a card like Book of Moon, just as an example, if you play a lower class deck. You understand how other cards that you normally wouldn't use can be utilized. It broadens your Yu-Gi-Oh horizon, I would say. Plus, it's really fun to play lower class decks and play with cool archetypes that you normally wouldn't get to play with on a normal basis. And the number 3 thing I would say, which is really awesome, and I've done this in the past multiple times, especially if I have the cards on hand, is, to keep Yu-Gi-Oh fresh and new, is actually go back and play other formats of the past. I guess you could say the main formats would be Teledad format, Scapegoat format, and Cookie Cutter Chaos decks, or Cookie Cutter decks that are really fun. I've always believed that Cookie Cutter decks were actually a really fun time in Yu-Gi-Oh for me personally, because though every deck was kind of cookie cutter, it was kind of like a beatdown style type deck. Playing old school beatdown decks, or playing decks that they wouldn't exist before, like say Invasion of Chaos or something like that. It's really fun to go back and build old school decks like Scapegoat format, Teledad. I've even seen some players to some extent go back and actually play a format that just happened 2 years ago, actually recently, and that was Dragon Ruler format. Even though we probably hate that format, it's actually in the, I guess you could say, Yu-Gi-Oh hierarchy, or looking back on Yu-Gi-Oh was one of those defining formats in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh to some extent. And people will go back and play that now because it's actually almost been 2 years since that happened. Imagine that. It'll be 2 years this summer since that's happened. So those are some ways that you can keep Yu-Gi-Oh fresh. Go build, playing tag team duels with your friends, building lower class decks so you can become a Yu-Gi-Oh player, a better Yu-Gi-Oh player I have found, and just in general have some good old-fashioned fun. And number 3, going back and living and learning about past formats and learning how to be a better Yu-Gi-Oh player that way. Those are just some little things that I've picked up throughout the years I've played Yu-Gi-Oh, and I just want to pass those on to you guys because personally I feel this format's kind of blah, and I think we need to freshen it up a bit, have some fun. So till next time guys, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling to all of you, and go have some fun in Yu-Gi-Oh guys. And until next time, Seto Kaiba, I'm out of here guys, till next time. Take care everybody.